Right. There's the man.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well, going well. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 6, Between Two Hedges. Privilege and honor to have Mr. Bert Emanuel Sr. here with us on the call. We look forward to getting here with Bert for a little bit. For those joining us, your first time, this is interactive. So you're on mute. You guys can see us. There is a Q&A function in your chat. So we encourage you throughout to put your questions in the Q&A, and me and Bert will touch on them throughout the call. If not, we got some time spared at the end to get into it a little bit. So look forward to doing it. Bert, appreciate you taking the time on a Thursday morning, man.
Hey, this is great. Great. I'm honored.
Yeah, it's right. It's July 2nd, right? So football terms, we're in the second half. The first half of the year is good. Second half, big comeback for you.
I hear you.
So glad to kick it off with you, man. Hey, we'll jump right into it. I think a lot of folks are familiar with you in a lot of ways, but wanted to touch on your path as a student athlete, right? Finished up at Rice. Right. That's where you started. So if you can dive into that a little bit, man, that'd be great.
Yeah. So coming out of high school, I was I was actually a 4-sport athlete. My senior year was the only year that I decided not to play basketball. I had a pretty bad injury my junior year to my ankle. And so as a high school senior, I got drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays to play baseball. Actually, the Oakland A's actually wanted to make me one of their top picks in the draft. Mom decided that college probably should be, my direction and my future. So she told them, don't waste your time on the pick. And so I've been crying for about 25 years now, but it
worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. It worked out. But so the Blue Jays actually drafted me in track. I was a state long jump champion my senior year. And then in football, I had, over 200 scholarships to play football across the country. And I went out to UCLA and, a long ways away, 2,000 miles away, wanted to wear the gold shiny helmet, and went out there and was out there for a couple years, kind of got starstruck. I think if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have started at Michigan. I'm not sure if I would have ended up at Rice, but got homesick. I actually got homesick, was out there for 2 years, decided to transfer back home, and enrolled at Rice in January of '91. And then because of that, I had to sit out a year. And I played the 92 season and 93 season, and graduated in 94 and got drafted again by the Pittsburgh Pirates in baseball. So I got drafted twice by Major League Baseball, and then I got drafted by Atlanta Falcons in 94. And so so it was not a perfect route, but definitely one that I'm still proud of. I graduated in 94, and I say that's probably my most memorable and fulfilling accomplishment is graduating.
I think it's rare now, right? You don't see as many 2-sport guys as you saw, or athletes, period, as you used to see. So how was it balancing baseball for Coach Graham and then football at the same time, playing the quarterback was? You shake your head.
I'm just gonna say right now, it was insane. It was insane. So, when I went out to UCLA, actually, I classify myself as almost like a 3-sport athlete because in college, because I ran track and played football at UCLA, and it was interesting because the coach wouldn't let me play baseball because I had just gotten drafted. He was kind of concerned that I was going to take the football scholarship and go all baseball. And I really didn't want to run track. I was fast, but I wasn't world class like those guys. But I tell you, running track at UCLA was an experience. FloJo was there, Jackie Joyner Kersey, Gail Devers. Then on the men's side, we had Mike Marsh, Henry Thomas, Steve Lewis. All these guys were gold medalists in the '88 Olympics. And it was impressive. I didn't know that they were also UCLA Bruins. Our men's track coach was the men's sprint coach for the Olympics. And then Bob Kersey was the women's coach on the women's side. And so that was really a big experience. But doing track and football at UCLA was tough. And then certainly once I transferred to Rice, playing baseball and playing football was insane. I mean, it's already tough enough, high caliber academic institution. It requires 100% focus. And I honestly, Mike, I don't know how I did it. I mean, I stayed in study hall. Julie Griswold was always on me.
Shout out to Julie Griswold. Shout out to Julie Griswold, baby. You're not alone on that. You're not alone. It's funny. We get calls from people who are disconnected for a little bit, or it's been a long time, and they call like, "Hey, is Julie still there?" Like, yeah, she's still
there. Yep.
So
She was a big reason why. She's a big reason why I was successful. I mean, she stayed on me. And I knew going in it was going to be tough. Coach Graham's program was always tough. Just being a two-sport athlete is tough enough. But you've got one of the top academic institutions in the country, and you've got at that time the baseball program was just beginning. It was Coach Graham's first year. Our football program was turning things around, and so there was I was pulled in a lot of different directions, and so I had a lot of good people around me to keep me on track, and ultimately there was a lot of success.
You ever lean towards going the baseball route? I've never asked you that. Was there ever any point that you thought maybe that would be the route for you?
Yeah, when I got my first hit in the NFL, I was thinking, why am I dressed up in a football uniform? You got to be kidding me. I got drafted twice.
There's a team across town. I'm going to jump in the dugout. You guys don't mind.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I got drafted twice, and I still didn't choose baseball. But, I think, baseball was really my first love. I think a lot of people don't know that, but I started playing baseball when I was 5 or 6 years old. And it was really more of a dream for me to play pro baseball than it was pro football. And I think that, mom and dad were both, highly educated, PhDs, MBAs, and academics was always something that was really stressed in the house. Athletics was too, but academics always came first. And it was pretty obvious that, I wasn't going to be a pro coming out of high school, even though I was, one of the top, 10 athletes in the country in baseball. But mom had it, she had a direction for me that she wanted to make sure that I didn't forget about how important academics was. And so I think looking back on it, it's always a question mark. There were points in my NFL career that I kept thinking, why
go back now? I can still hit it. Yeah.
Maybe I should go in the spring and go swing a bat, kind of like Dion and the other guys back in the day. But that was really kind of the reason why my two oldest girls, once I retired, that's why I got them into softball, was because really my love for baseball. I loved it so much and missed it that I thought that they could, kind of fulfill a little bit of that love for me, selfishly. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I got them back into, or that's how I kind of got myself back into the sport as a whole.
So I love that, man. We're going to touch on the family side, because I love when you talk about your girls and your BJ. But question for everybody: who's your favorite athlete growing up?
It was Lynn Swann. It was funny. I grew up and, the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the 80s, 70s and 80s. I think it was the 80s was the Steelers, and the 90s were the 49ers or the Cowboys. I can't remember exactly what it was, but, Lynn Swann was always kind of the guy that I wanted to emulate. I used to fall over the couch and catch the ball one-handed, and I had an 88 jersey, and it was kind of cool. Even though I played quarterback, as a young kid, 7th grade, I didn't play football until the 7th grade. But in junior high, I played quarterback. In high school, I played quarterback. In college, I played quarterback. And then in the NFL, I made the transition to be a receiver. But Lynn Swann was the guy that I always wanted to emulate. And so it's kind of funny. I've never met Lynn.
I was going to ask you that. Have you ever met him?
Yeah, I've never met Lynn. Donnie Shell was actually a part of one of those, all of those Steeler, great teams. And because I was a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, but I was also a Houston Oilers fan. But when Donnie Shell broke Earl Campbell's ribs, I was really upset at Donnie Shell. And I met Donnie years ago. And I walked up to him, and Coach Dungy kind of introduced me. He's like, "Hey, Bert, this is Donnie Shell. He was my mentor." And I said, "Donnie, I'm just, I have to tell you this. I got to get this off my chest. But when you broke Earl Campbell's ribs, man, I hated you. I mean, I did not like you at all." I love you now because I love the story behind how you shared with Coach Dungy and you mentored him. But man, growing up, I just didn't like you anymore. And he laughed, shook his hand. Said, "You know what? A lot of people have told me that, that were big time Houston Oilers fans." And so, but that was just a cool story. I love the Steelers back in the day. They were pretty cool.
That's really cool, man. Lynn Swan, if you're watching this, let's get you connected with Mr. Bert Emanuel. We gotta make that happen. Hey, those joining the call right now, here with Bert Emanuel Sr. Excited to have him on here. There's a Q&A function in the chat, so please feel free to send some questions in. Me and Bert will touch on them here as we continue the conversation. Hey, Bert, you touched on Sydney and Courtney, right? You touched on your girls playing softball. I think it's awesome. Those who don't know, family of 5, right? You got the 4 girls, and you got BJ, the son, picking up the rear.
Yeah.
Coming in late. So talk about that, man. You're probably, would you say, where do you rank in terms of athletes in your family right now, right? You're towards the bottom now, right?
Well, psychologically and mentally, I feel like I'm still at the top, right? But physically, I'm definitely at the bottom.
Yeah. So
I mean, I've got my middle daughter's at UNT running track, and our baby girl, she ran track for years. She had an injury that pulled her out. But just an athletic family. My wife, ran track and played volleyball in high school. And so, there's, when you talk about competition now, we had I tell you about this on Father's Day a couple of weeks ago. My son organized a kickball game, right? And so it was, essentially it was our family and my wife's sister's family and a couple of other guys. And so we picked teams and everything. We went out to the baseball fields and we had bases and all that stuff. Well, I went 1 for 4 and, left about 7 or 8 people on base, and we lost by 1 run, and I am still sore about this.
The Father's Day we don't talk about, right? We skip past it.
Yeah.
It was Father's Day. There's no pictures.
Yeah, it was tough. And BJ was on the other team, and so I had, a couple of my daughters on my team. BJ was on the other team. My middle daughter was on the other team. And when the game was over, we just walked to the car. I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't say happy Father's Day. I mean, it was just, it was rough. I mean, I couldn't believe my loss. I mean,
don't talk to Dad. That's
the environment that it's very competitive in the house. And we talk a lot about leadership. We talk a lot about mental preparation. We talk about teamwork. How to be a good teammate. And all of those things that you kind of get from sports, but what we talk about the most, and I just mentioned it, is leadership, really and truly. We talk about how to be a leader, how to pick your teammates up, what true leadership is, never leave a teammate behind. And I stress that in everything, that they do, whether it's, a pickup game, of basketball or soccer or kickball or, a track meet or anything. And so I think those are some of the things that I've been the most proud of in all of our kids, is that they really understand that dynamic of leadership.
Yeah. And I've had a chance to meet Bert Jr. a bit. And one time I was at the camp, right? So physically, right, he's a young kid, but physically he's imposing. You can tell just mentally where he was and kind of that model. Yeah. How is it now, right? For those who know, your son is a up and rising quarterback in the high school ranks. He's got all the potential in the world. How do you sit down? How do you prep him? How do you prep him for the next level and beyond?
It's funny because we never really talk about natural talent here in the house. You know, all the girls could run. You know, the two oldest had hand-eye coordination that was really kind of, you know, supernatural. And, you know, they did a lot of great things at University of Georgia in terms of All-American and, you know, playing in 2 World Series. And, you know, they're just all over the record books in Georgia. The two bottom girls are, you know, fast and very unique in terms of being leaders. And then with BJ, you know, I've talked a lot about, you know, technique, and that's something that I've stressed, technique and leadership with them. We very rarely talk about talent. As a matter of fact, we were out at the fields yesterday, and he actually rolled left and kind of stepped left and threw right and threw it about 50 yards, and it was on the money. And he turned around, looked at me, he said, "What about that?" And I said, that's about talent. You know, I'm not really concerned about talent. I want to see you actually square your shoulders up and throw it down the middle, you know? And so I constantly remind them that it's not all about the outcome. You know, it's not all about the result. It's about the process, and the process has to be done a certain way, you know? And so, you know, and I think the most important thing with all of the kids is reminding them that the world doesn't owe them anything, you know, because their last name is Emanuel. That doesn't give you any extra, you know, opportunity to think that you're elite, right? Or that someone owes you something. It's all about hard work. It's all about dedication. It's all about, you know, treating people right and being, you know, being humble. And so, with BJ, he's 6'4" now, right? He's 195 pounds. He's grown about 5 inches, you know, 55 pounds since his freshman year. It's incredible to see him. He reminds me every day that there's a different temperature at my level because he's taller than me than it is at his. He always says, how's the temperature down there, little man? You know, and so, yeah. And so, but we, you know, we've got a unique relationship, just like I have with each of the girls. And, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, excellence. You know, how do you define excellence? How do you define success? You know, and work hard in everything that you do. You know, the results will happen if you put in the work. You can't just go out there and expect success and good things to happen if you haven't put in the work. At the end of the day, there's always going to be someone that may be a little bit more talented, but how much work have they put in, you know? And so those are the things that you can rely upon and dig your feet in.
Right. That transcends athletics, right? That's life, right? That's business in the
Exactly.
world, right? There's people that have plenty of time that don't outwork. They don't, you know, the workers.
Exactly.
So everyone on the call right
Exactly.
now, with Bert Emanuel Sr., one of my favorite guys here. So for those who don't know me, right, you come by Youngkin Center and you come by my office and there's a little, you know, Buccaneers helmet. I got a creamsicle Buccaneers helmet on my window. I grew up in Tampa, huge Bucs fan. So my first kind of shell moment when I took this job was the first time meeting Bert almost 2 years ago. And I remember, you know, kind of rushing over to Bert and being like, "Bert, man, it's a pleasure meeting you. I got to let you know, I was 13 when that play happened and I cried myself to sleep that night. And you were like this, or like, so did I, Mike. So did I. You know, it was really, I'm not going to let this 30 minutes pass by. I love this, you know, you telling the story a little bit about that catch and how that's kind of kept you, right? Like that you're a rule, right? You're a rule in the NFL. And I speak about it a good bit, but touch base on that play, man, and that whole situation.
Yeah, you know, it's been 20 years now. And, you know, ESPN came in last year and did a really neat story about it. You know, it was a tough year for me. And, you know, I was in and out of the lineup. It was my second year with the Bucs. You know, I dealt with so many different injuries for whatever reason. I had played 4 or 5 years, had never had any injuries, and went to Tampa, and it was injury after injury after injury. Broke my ankle the very first game that we played in a Bucs uniform. But you know, we were on a roll, and we were playing in the NFC Championship game against the St. Louis Rams, Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, so forth and so on. And it was pegged as the greatest show on turf versus the greatest defense in the universe. And I believe at halftime, the score was 5-2 or 5-3,
5-2.
something,
Yeah,
something
5-2.
just really just odd, right? Just a really strange game. And we were in control. We just couldn't get over the hump. And then all of a sudden, Ricky Prohl catches a unbelievable touchdown in the corner of the end zone. And we had a chance. I think the score then was 11-5. We had a chance to come back. It was about 45 seconds left on the clock. We had a young rookie quarterback, Sean King, that had won 8 or 9 games straight. Our starting quarterback, Trent Dilfer, had broken his collarbone. And so it was just a really odd year, right? And so, but we were one game away from the Super Bowl, literally 45 seconds away from the Super Bowl. And I caught a ball. It was second and 16. I caught, like a 9 or 10 yard pass. And, honestly, it was not a very difficult catch at all. But I went to the ground, got up, called timeout because I knew it wasn't a first down, called timeout. Side judge called timeout, gave me timeout, stopped the clock, walked over to Coach Dungy. We were probably inside the 20-yard line or so. And he walks over and says, hey, it seems like you're feeling it a little bit. We want to go to you the next 2 or 3 plays. What do you think? And I said, hey, Coach, I think I can get him on a corner route, back of the end zone, touchdown. He said, well, if you score a touchdown right here, we're going to the Super Bowl. And he said, you ready? And I said, I'm ready. And about that time, the head judge, referee walks over and says, hey, Tony, we're going to review the last play. And we all looked at each other like, what do you mean review the last play? And we all said, well, what are you reviewing? I mean, what is it? And he said, well, we got a buzz from the booth to review the catch. And so I remember like it was yesterday, Tony turns around and he looks at me and he says, Bert, did you catch it? And I said, Coach, it wasn't even close. And he said, that's what I thought too, but this doesn't sound like it's going to be a good deal for us. And sure enough, 2 minutes later, they botched the whole thing, right? I think at that time you had about 90 seconds to make a ruling. They went about 2 minutes. I called timeout. They came over and they said, after further review, it was ruled not a catch. And so we're going to roll off 10 seconds. We're going to move them back another 10 yards. But they forgot to give us our timeout back. And so we had one more play, Hail Mary, game over. I remember being pushed out of the way, big guy that was rolling the tape out, confetti all over the place. And I walk into the tunnel and I sat down by my locker and I'm thinking, what just happened? And it was just dead silence. And I look over at Warren Sapp and he says, hey, Bert, you're going to talk to those guys behind you. And I turn around, Mike, and it's 50 reporters just standing there, just being respectful of the moment. Peter Gammon says, hey, look, Bert, did you catch it? And I said, yeah. And it was just, one question after the other. And it was just kind of surreal. I just could not wrap my hands around what had just happened and the impact. Since then, it's been, one of the top 2 most controversial plays in the history of the game. Really neat story. A couple of years back, Bert Jr. was about 12 years old. And this has been kind of bittersweet. This is, no one goes in the NFL and says, hey, look, I want a rule named after me so they can live forever, right? Everybody wants to be a Pro Bowler or the Super Bowl ring or Hall of Famer. And so it's been bittersweet. And I've been kind of living with this idea that maybe I was the reason why Tampa didn't go to the Super Bowl that year. And so after 17, 18 years, Bert Jr. says, hey, Dad, I'm looking in your office. You got all these cool pictures, but you have nothing about the catch. I mean, you got a rule named after you. That's pretty cool, huh? And I was like, it's okay. And he's like,
touchy. It's touchy.
Yeah, he said, no, seriously, Dad. I mean, you changed the game. I mean, you should have a picture of it somewhere. And I'm like, well, I don't know, son. He said, well, why don't you call the newspaper back in Tampa to see if they have the picture, they can give it to you. And I'm like, but I really don't know if I want. And he said, well, why don't you call it because I'm a want to keep it. And I'm like, okay, I'll call. So I called the Tampa Tribune. Great story. And I said, hey, look, this is Bert Emanuel. I used to play for Tampa Bay, back in the day. I had a catch that was ruled incomplete, kept us out of the Super Bowl. I don't know if you guys have the catch or not, but I was just calling to see if you have a picture. And the guy on the other end says, we've been waiting for 18 years for your call. The picture is in a vault. And we were told that if you ever called, that we would give it to you. And I just kind of sat there and I'm just, tears kind of rolled down my face. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And he's like, no, sir. And he said, we can overnight it to you tomorrow. And I said, well, can you blow it up? And he was like, and he said, actually, it was before digital cameras existed. And so it's an 8x10. The most we could blow it up would be, 11x15, but we can get both of those to you tomorrow. And I just kind of got quiet. And he said, are you still there? And I said, yeah, I'm here. He said, so give us your address so we can send it to you. And they sent it to me. And so I have it here on my desk.
Yep.
I'm not quite sure exactly what to do with it. That's a mark from the Tampa Tribune.
That's so good, man.
I got it in this sleeve here, and
that's so good.
And so it's been pretty cool. And so so I've got a rule named after me that has essentially changed the whole game. The catch over the years from Des Bryant to Megatron to the Pittsburgh Steelers game. I mean, it's constantly come up and affected the outcome of the game. And here recently, the NFL, Roger Goodell and the operations department has invited me to help streamline and simplify the rule because I was basically the inspiration behind it. So it's been kind of cool.
Really cool stuff, man. For those, we're getting close to the end, but I know there's a few questions that came in, and there's one comment, right? So I want to make sure it gets to you. From Jennifer Overton. This has been awesome, Bert. You and your story are amazing. Many congrats on everything, but especially on graduating. Just FYI, my husband and I have been on the football and men's and women's basketball stat crews for over 35 years, so we kept your official Rice NCAA stats. Go Owls.
Wow.
Stats, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
The other part is, man,
Thank you.
We've talked about it, a lot. You leave, you wrap up your career. You spent a lot of time being a dad, right? Focused on the family. What else have you been doing after football? What's the life of Bert Emanuel after football been like for you?
Well, to sum it up, I jumped right into becoming an entrepreneur. Mom was an entrepreneur, dad was an entrepreneur. That's what I saw. Dad was a PhD, mom was an MBA. Dad has been at NASA for almost 30 years. Mom was a part of the development team that created the juice box that we all love to drink out of.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to jump in and kind of, get my feet wet a little bit. And so over the years, I've got 4 patents that I've developed in terms of, medical apparel for doctors and nurses. I've done business with NASA in terms of developing a liquid cooling suit for astronauts. And then I've sold, almost 1 million pieces to most of our female deployed soldiers that were overseas. And so it's been an amazing stretch over the last 15, 16, 17 years. And then now I'm really focusing on creating antimicrobial technologies in terms of liquids for hands and for surfaces, apparel for athletes and people that need protection on a daily basis, and then just fabrics that we can sell to big companies that are looking for the next evolution of antimicrobial or antiviral products. And so it's been interesting for me. I love what I do. I love creating. I love developing. I love the marketing aspect. I love the branding aspect. And then honestly, it's just kind of come natural because I've watched mom and dad do it for so many years. And so, so I enjoy, we've got a great group of people. I really want to tap a little bit more into the Rice community because, the science and technology, that's apparent, in the Rice community is very strong. just been a leader, you know, a renowned leader across the world, and a lot of things that have come out of Rice University. And so I'm excited. Our kids have got the entrepreneurial spirit and bug as well. And it's been kind of cool to see, you know, that rub off on them.
Bert, man, you're a tremendous ambassador. You're a tremendous guy. I appreciate the time, man. Appreciate the time. I look forward to seeing you in person at some point soon, right? Once we get once we get through some of this, look forward to seeing you in person. Everyone join the call.
Absolutely.
Have a safe holiday weekend. Take care of each other. We'll do this again next Thursday, 11 o'clock. I'll have our baseball coach, Matt Braga, join us. As always, be safe, love one another, and go Owls.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.